With question number one. For question number one, it's important to remember for a firm in a competitive industry, marginal revenue is equal to price. And our goal is for marginal revenue to be equal to marginal costs. So using that, when P is greater than MC, we should produce more. And when MC is greater than P, we should produce less. So with A, Waffle Co. should produce more. With B, Rio Blanco should produce less. With C, GoDaddy.com should produce more. And with D, Luke's Lawn Service should produce less. With question number two, because of the wage increase, the marginal cost curve shifts upward. Funnily enough, it almost looks like it's shifting left because of the shape of the curve. But what happens because of this is that the quantity of motors per month decreases, which means that the total number produced is lower with the wage increase. And in a competitive market, this one factory having a slight decrease in the number of motors per month is relatively insignificant and won't have any impact on the global scale. So this doesn't really change the price of motors. And in the last situation, no, because of the higher marginal costs, more workers won't be coming to Galt Incorporated because they're producing fewer motors and they have to pay their higher wages, so they will most likely be hiring fewer and fewer workers. With question number three in this interesting dorm conversation, no, your friend is wrong. In the long run, competition will cause the price to drop to normal profits or zero profits. And in part B, in the long run, the location of the average cost has the biggest effect because price in the long run is equal to the minimum average cost curve.
The marginal revenue would be $0.5 because for every additional apple Sam sells, he's getting a revenue of $0.5. And Sam would pick the lowest branches first because they have the lowest opportunity cost compared to the highest branch. It says right here, the higher he goes, the higher the cost for picking each apple increase. So this is suggesting that the marginal cost is increasing. And as I said before, marginal cost is a cost of producing one additional unit. In this case, every apple Sam picks, he's increasing the cost because he's increasing the probability to go to the higher branches. Here's like a table for each. You're given the total cost, and the marginal revenue would be the same, constant 0.5, because every additional good he sells, he's going to earn 0.5. And marginal cost is determined by the change in cost divided by the change in quantity. So if you do that for all of them, you get these values, and profits just the marginal revenue minus marginal cost, and you get that. And by looking at this data, you can see that Sam should pick 4 apples because that's where his marginal cost is equal to marginal revenue. Yeah, even though he doesn't make any profit, that's the most probable, best to optimize his output basically. Question 5. So the quantity would be 15 because um, at $5, if you look right here, it's about the curve is about 15-ish. This should extend a little bit more. So um, the curve is about 15, and uh, what would be the profit? This box actually extends a little bit more. It comes about right here, and you find the area of this rectangle right here, which would be 1 times 15, so $15. Whoops. So if other sellers have the same marginal cost and the same average cost, that this would increase. This would cause a free entry into the market. So more sellers would be coming into the market. Therefore, this would drive the supply curve to the right, which would decrease the prices in the long run to this point right here.
So question 6 asks about the marginal and average grades after 10 tests in an economics class. So I graphed the marginal and average grades after each test, and I noticed that the marginal and average grades intersect at the lowest point of the average grades, which makes sense because when the marginal is below the average is decreasing, but when the marginal is above the average is increasing. So the grades start improving with the 4th grade, however, the average starts increasing with the 5th grade because the 4th grade is still lower than average. The 5th grade is where marginal grades start to get higher than the average because the 4th grade alone is not enough to bring up the average. So question 7 asks, given the cost function in the following table shown to the right, answer the questions. What is the minimum price per room at which Simon would be earning a positive economic profit? So this would be a price of $12.78 per room if you were to paint 6 rooms per week, because I calculated the average cost after each number of rooms, and after 6 rooms, the average cost would be $76.67. So in order to have a higher revenue than this cost, Simon would have to have a price of $12.78 per room. And at prices below this price, Simon's long-run plan would have to be to paint 3 rooms per week because this is the point at which the average cost is the lowest. So even with a smaller revenue, he would still be able to make a profit. So question 8 asks, Sandy owns a firm with an annual revenue of $1 million. Costs are $900,000. So her accounting profit would be total revenue minus explicit costs, which would be $100,000. So if Sandy decided to get a job with the following annual salaries, her economic profit would be total revenue minus total costs. So this includes explicit and implicit costs, which in this case, the implicit cost would be the amount she could have earned by being an entrepreneur, which is $100,000. So for a job with a salary of $50,000, the economic profit would be negative $50,000. For the $100,000, the profit would be 0, and for the $50,000, the profit would be $150,000.
Question 9. Well, the first thing we have to do is we have to look at the difference between costs and expenses. So what is this difference? So the difference is costs are when a company expends resources in order to acquire something, whereas expenses are an example where a company spends money or expends a resource to buy something that will in the end make money. So what's the relevancy to fixed costs? Well, fixed costs in the long run help to determine whether a company determines whether they want to stay in the market or if they want to leave the market. So in the short run, their expenses, because their expenses made by companies in the hopes that they will make money in the future. If the company identifies that these expenses are not going to make money or they're not going to help the company, then the company will just leave the market altogether. So you can see how there's a stark difference between costs and expenses, even though the two terms are used interchangeably in society. So question 10, so as you can see on the right, we have the final table, what the values came out to be, and on the left, we have the original table. So I'll kind of just go through how the team solved this problem. So first, we can see that the total revenue is based off of a constant price of $15. Now, why is it $15? Because total revenue is quantity times the price. So if we look at the quantity, $10 times 15 equals the total revenue of $150. Fixed costs are costs that are going to remain fixed, i.e. fixed costs, and they do not fluctuate based off quantity. Total revenue minus total costs, right? So in the first example, you're making $0, so we know that our total cost is $80. Our fixed cost is also $80. Then we have a variable cost of 0 at the first level. You solve for the total cost using our idea of what marginal cost is. So marginal cost is the change in total cost over the change in quantity. So take how we had $4. So we can take $4, multiply it by the change in quantity, 10, and then add the initial total cost, $80, and we'll get a value of $120. So then we can use that to find variable cost. We can use $120 as the total cost to find the average cost, and we can use that and the total revenue of $150 to find profits. And then we basically just complete this process for the quantities of 20, 30, 40, and 50, and we can get all these values that should work out, and they will work out if you apply them to the tests of what marginal cost is, what marginal revenue is, what average cost. They will all work out.